Welcome back, everybody. My name is Steven. I'm here with my buddy Nick. Nick, how are we doing today?
Dude, I am ready. I'm finally off work. I know you are too. You ready for this?
Oh, I've been ready. I was telling you earlier, all I could think about at work. I'm at the point in the season, in the off season for football now. All I could think about at work is fantasy football. I'm taking my phone out when I'm not when I shouldn't be, checking the news. I mean, crazy news today with the Steelers and Dolphins trades.
Absolutely.
So
I feel like both teams somehow got worse in that trade, but that's the point for another day.
if you guys want to check out more about that trade, click on the channel. We have plenty of content covering that trade from both sides in a fantasy football aspect and in a NFL terms aspect. But yeah, Nick, all I could think about today was coming home and just talking about fantasy football. And so today, what we're going to bring to you guys is 6 players that we are not touching at their average draft position right now. Nick, why don't you start us off? Who are you not touching this year?
Oh, you know what? We've got a lot of hype in Indiana following the NBA Finals. The Pacers took it to 7 and that bone-crushing injury to Tyrese Halliburton. Well, you know what? I got another one for Indiana. It's Michael Pittman Jr. Okay? Solid wide receiver 2 years ago. Solid wide receiver 4 years ago. But now he's in a wide receiver room with guys like Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, and to be honest, Adonai Mitchell, who I think could surpass him, I would say. I wouldn't say this year, but the target share is just not going to be there. You're expecting Daniel Jones, the guy who really only did well his rookie season and then absolutely fell off a cliff after that. You're expecting him to solve this because there's no way Anthony Richards is going to be able to do that. The guy doesn't even want to be in the game. And if that's the case, Michael Pittman is going to suffer greatly. Daniel Jones does not have the best deep ball. He's got one, but I don't think that ball is going to be connecting a whole lot with Mr. Pittman. So in my opinion, you have to fade him. If it's Dynasty, especially, maybe now's the time to buy him in Dynasty, but if in a redraft, get him the heck away from my team. No way.
Absolutely. I mean, that Indianapolis offense has plenty of mouths to feed with no real answer at quarterback. You know what they say, Nick, when you have 2 quarterbacks, you really have no quarterbacks. And that seems to be the case there in Indianapolis. And they added Tyler Warren, Jonathan Taylor's back.
Yep.
Lots of mouths to feed. Michael Pittman, a guy a lot of guys are avoiding this year, even though it's late in drafts. Go take someone else. My first guy that I'm going to bring up is another guy going later in the drafts. His average draft position right now, according to Sleeper, is around 90, and that is Pittsburgh Steelers running back Jaylen Warren. Nick, I don't know about you, but I've never really been a Jaylen Warren fan. He's a great NFL player. I just don't enjoy him for fantasy. His team, the Steelers, they've never really committed to him as a full workhorse back. Now, that may be a stature thing. He's not the biggest of guys. And they did have Najee Harris for the entire time Jaylen Warren's been in his career.
Exactly.
Well, now that Najee Harris is gone, maybe this is Warren's backfield. No, they go out and they spend a high draft capital pick to go and get their running back of the future, Caleb Johnson, who I expect to come in and take a significant chunk of the carries in that new Arthur Smith offense. So I just don't really see the upside in taking a guy like Jaylen Warren in that around that 90th pick in that range. There's some guys that I like going around that range a whole lot more, like a Stephon Diggs, who's a wide receiver 1 on his team. You got Travis Etienne. Etienne had a bad year, but he's got the upside and the path to more volume than a Jaylen Warren. So guys like that, Jawan Jennings, another guy who could go out and just outperform his ADP. And these guys are all going a few picks after Jaylen Warren right now. Those are a couple guys that I would rather have. Not really a fan of Jaylen Warren in the past. Nothing really changes this year. I'm not touching him at all at his average draft position right now. Nick, give me another guy you're not touching.
Oh, this is going to be an interesting one, okay? He's coming off of a pretty solid season, and to be honest, if he was my quarterback, I'd be damn happy to have him. But that's Jared Goff. Jared Goff loses the OC, they lose the DC, and I understand that that's not everything, but that is something. And not just that, but Ben Johnson was a lot of something. So I think that the step back is real for Jared Goff. Now, obviously, he's starting to get towards the 30s. I think he's 29 now. So if you're looking at him dynasty-wise, he's not going to be a guy you're really going to want to go out there and get. And in redraft, of course, he's going to be a solid quarterback. But I'm really worried about, to be honest, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm really worried about the wide receiver core staying healthy. The running back room, I'm super excited for. But Jared Goff doesn't get points for that unless it's a dump-off pass. And they're gonna, in my opinion, shy away from that. So I'm really worried about that. Goff does have a potential to do well, but I just don't see it this year. Maybe next year. I just feel like the Lions are poised to be that team that was contending, like the 49ers were in a Super Bowl, to just not in it. And that could be the reset where, of course, Jared Goff is sent into the sun for another quarterback.
Exactly right. I mean, the Lions had a healthy year on the offensive side of the ball, not necessarily on the defensive side of the ball. So, there could be some injury regression, if that's even a thing, for
Correct.
the Detroit Lions coming up this year. You know what? I'm going to go with another receiver who I am not really touching this year, and it really pains me to say it. I'm just going to pour one out for, okay, there was actually water in that. We're doing one take.
Yep, that's okay.
Mistakes happen. My pants are soaked. All right. Pour one out for a guy who had maybe the best fantasy football season at the wide receiver position of all time, and that is Cooper Kupp. It stinks, Nick. Cooper Kupp was such a great player in fantasy football, and I think his time of being that elite of the elite wide receiver is way past him. He left the Rams this season, and now he is on the Seattle Seahawks in a new offense, new quarterback. I just don't see it for him. I mean, he was injured last year, and his production really fell off once Puka Nacua got back on the field. It kind of seemed like Cooper Kupp was an afterthought.
I agree.
It really felt like even in the late at the end of the season and into the playoffs, felt like he was kind of the third option. I mean, in the playoffs, he did not out target Tyler Higbee. So that says a lot to me if Cooper Kupp, and right now he's being drafted at 87th overall according to Sleeper. So there's a bunch of guys that I mentioned previously that I would take over Cooper Kupp, and some more guys going around that area. Guys like Jacoby Myers. He's the number one guy in that Vegas offense. Really great pick right there. Another guy, maybe you need a tight end, go Evan Ingram, who should feast some targets from Trevor Lawrence in that Jacksonville offense. Another guy I like, Khalil Shakir. He was the leading receiver for the Bills last season. You get the wide receiver one for a Bills offense. That sounds great. And Cooper Kupp is going ahead of some of those guys, and I just don't see it. I mean, Cooper Kupp is a primarily slot receiver type of wide receiver, and they already have one. JSN, Jackson Smith-Njigba. He primarily dominated out of the slot last year, and I don't think they would change that up with him being so young and the success that he was having. I don't think they changed that. So I don't really see the path to fantasy success for Cooper Kupp this season, and that's really unfortunate because he's such a great guy and just great NFL player. I think he's at the point in his career where his fantasy relevance is kind of draining. He's a better NFL player than fantasy football player nowadays, which, Nick, that's really sad.
I think he has a chance in PPR, but the chance is also that you're betting on Sam Darnold, and I'm not sure if that's a bet that most people are willing to make.
Exactly.
It could be a 2024 Carolina Panthers with Adam Thielen where they just feed him the ball. But if that's the case, the ball's not going somewhere else. JSN slides down. The offense isn't as good, which means they can shrink the field. There's so much that goes into it. So if Cooper Kupp does become a target monster, it is by a wide, crazy thing to happen. That is not going to be normal. He is going to return to earth, and I like the Cooper Kupp pick.
Yeah, and the one thing about Cooper Kupp is the injuries now. I mean, he hasn't stayed healthy in a few seasons. So I love Cooper Kupp. I hope we're all wrong, but I just don't see a successful season for Cooper Kupp this season. Nick, give me your last guy who you're not touching at all in fantasy drafts this year.
Okay, this one's going to be a tough one for me because I think the potential dynasty-wise is there. But right now, as a rookie, I just don't see it. And that's cornerback/wide receiver, Travis Hunter. I think that he has so much opportunity in the NFL, and especially with the recent news that Brian Thomas Jr. suffered a very minor scuffed little injury in camp and everything like that. That lends credence to the idea that maybe Travis Hunter does get a bit more target share. That would be great in a PPR league. But you're really betting that Brian Thomas Jr. just falls off a cliff and that somehow Travis is able to hop in there and become that wide receiver 1. I don't really think he's even good enough to be wide receiver 2 at this moment, though I think his, target share might be up there. Year 2, come talk to me. Travis Hunter will be the guy. Year 3. But right now, as a rookie, I just can't buy into the Travis Hunter hype, especially if they're going to be playing him on both sides. I really need a full-time wide receiver, part-time corner, if he's going to have big-time fantasy implications, because if by some crazy thing that flips and he becomes a cornerback focused and just gets snaps at wide receiver, his fantasy implications will put him in the hundreds. So for that reason, I'm out on Travis Hunter. But again, dynasty, maybe.
Absolutely. Travis Hunter is he's the definition of a high risk, high reward pick this year in fantasy football. We've seen rookie receivers absolutely kill it and win leagues, but also where Travis Hunter's being drafted in those middle rounds, he could also really set your team back if he were to, mid-season, maybe the wide receiver thing isn't working out how they expected, or they have some injuries on defense, and maybe by like week 3, he plays mostly defense and is not getting as many snaps on offense. Almost feels like a wasted pick in the middle rounds that we can all see coming. But Travis Hunter, definitely a guy to keep an eye on. Definitely see what they are doing in preseason and the reports in training camp to see where Travis Hunter will be playing on which side of the ball this season. Nick, my last guy might raise some feathers. This one people might not like, but I think it's time to get a little bit uncomfortable with a guy that I am not really fond of where he is being drafted. Now I'm not saying this guy's not good for fantasy football. He's great. I'm just not touching him where he's going. And that is Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions. I know you had touched on it a little bit, but I'm not touching Amon-Ra for St. Brown in the first round. Last year, I was all for it. Amon-Ra was great, and he paid off. I mean, he had double-digit touchdowns, over 100 receptions. He was a baller last year, and he was great for your fantasy team. I'm not saying he's not going to be good this year. I'm just not taking him in that first round. He's got an average draft position of 7.9, so basically 8th overall, which is
insane.
I
would take rookie Ashton Jinty over Amon-Ra St. Brown. In fact, I do it every draft.
It's not ridiculous. It's not ridiculous to say that. Like that meme right there. It's not ridiculous to say that. Yep. I feel comfortable taking Amon-Ra in the middle of the second, maybe late second. Absolutely would love to take him there. But in the first round, I just think there's so many better options that you could go with. Amon-Ra Brown, oh my gosh.
I feel that. Yep. Amon-Ra, to be honest, there's a lot of them right there that like, it's going to be tough, man. I can't see it. If you got Amon-Ra in a 12-team league at like right at the turn at that 13, you took like a Malik Neighbors and then him or something like that. Right. Hey, if he's your wide receiver too, great. You got Jamar Chase in him, awesome. You are wheeling and dealing. But anything other than that, if he's your wide receiver 1, to be honest, I'd rather gamble on Emeka Egbuka.
That's a little crazy, Nick. That's a
little
crazy.
Not. Mark my words. Mark my words.
At his ADP, I think I could see taking Egbuka at his ADP over St. Brown at his ADP. Overall, a little crazy right now. But with Amon-Ra, I mean, they lost Ben Johnson, and I don't know. I really put a lot of it's a lot of thought that goes into leave. Oh my goodness, I am not speaking well today. Losing an offensive coordinator really does change an offense, and that's coming from someone who's an Eagles fan. I see it firsthand every year when we change offensive coordinators. I mean, we went to the Super Bowl, and then we had one of the worst offenses, not this season, previous season, when we had a new offense coordinator in Brian Johnson. Things just were not clicking, and you can see that with most teams when they get a new offensive coordinator. Things just don't click right away, and that could be some concern for the Lions losing Ben Johnson. And they have plenty of mouths to feed. Like you said earlier, they have Jameson Williams, who finally seems like he's hitting his stride. Sam Laporta is due for a bounce-back season and good for multiple touchdowns. And then they still have Sonic and Knuckles, Jahmyr Gibbs, and David Montgomery out of the backfield. So plenty of mouths to feed. I'm sure Amon-Ra will still be the target leader on this team. But like you said, there's so many guys in the first round that I would rather have, like a Puka Nacua, like a Malik Neighbors, Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey. Those guys, I think, have the higher upside than Amon-Ra St. Brown this season. Not saying Amon-Ra is not a good pick. I would just take him. I feel more comfortable taking him in the second round than 8th overall.
I would agree. So Nick, I think he finishes wide receiver 15.
Yeah, I mean, even then, wide receiver 15 is a great fantasy asset. It's just not great.
Not at number 8
overall. Not great when you take him 8th overall. Exactly, Nick. So I'm so glad you were able to join us tonight. Thank you guys for watching here at the Blitz Sports Media Fantasy Football channel. If you like what you saw, go down and hit that subscribe button. Turn on the post notifications. We're dropping videos almost daily now that the fantasy season is really kicking up into July and August. And throughout the season, we will provide you guys with some excellent content and expert analysis for everything fantasy football. Nick, thank you for joining us. Have a great night.
You too, buddy. I will see you soon.